All right, everybody. So this is my review of episode 2 of The Walking Dead World Beyond. This episode is entitled The Blaze of Gory. Now, this episode, and just be really quick, this is spoilers, so just in case you haven't seen it yet, I'm definitely diving deep into this episode. So this episode, we see the four of them now out beyond the wall. And it's very clear that none of them attended Felix class, because when it comes down to self-defense against the empties, they're just failing miserably here. So the one thing I want to kind of bring up really quick is that the four of them are calling themselves the Endlings. Now, that was originally going to be the name of this series. So we kind of see the correlation between that, because when I heard that, I was kind of wondering, like, I like World Beyond. I think that's an amazing title, but Endling, I wasn't totally convinced on, and I was also wondering where the origins of it came from. So yes, we got clarification on that. But so starting off this episode, we get to see Hope, who is a complete shooter, and as much as she criticized Iris about having the dreams, she's also having flashbacks from the trauma as well too. So again, we're going to see the two of them really battle between one another in the conflict because of their past, because of the trauma, because of the circumstances and because they're sisters, and because of their disagreements and personalities and how they actually go about things. We're going to see a lot of conflicting patterns between the two of them. Not to mention, we're just going to see different tactics. And again, we're just going to see them trying to, I wouldn't say one up one another, but big sister one another in a form of protection. So I think it's going to be a really, really interesting dynamic for the entire series. Now, Felix and Huck, who decides to go after them, obviously did the best decision of their life, because as we see, CRM laid waste to Campus Colony, which is sad, because I was really interested in seeing more about the lifestyle there, but so that's gone now. But again, we didn't trust them, so we knew that was all coming about. But I was also wondering too, like, Felix and Huck really had like really prominent positions on the campus as far as the classes they taught. Kind of wonder who like, how did they get their sign off to saying they needed to do such? Because like, you're leaving a big void in positions by just leaving like that. But so with this episode, we're getting more of the characters' background. Now, we got a lot about Iris in the first episode and more about Hope. Now we're getting more about Felix and more about Elton. So it seems like as we get deeper in the series, we're just going to continue to get the story progressing, but also getting a lot of background information about more about the psychology of the characters. And then obviously, which I talked about in episode 1 review, we got more visuals from the night that the sky fell, which I am loving the aesthetics of that set piece. It just looks amazing with just the fire and the empties and just how that was done. I mean, that opening shot was really badass. I loved it. And like young Hope, I mean, again, she's a shooter. But going back into something that I heard a lot of people kind of talking about, and that's really like how the empties were looking in this. Now, a lot of people are saying they don't look as scary and whatever, but I think by now, by seeing that bees one, if you don't think that they're actually doubling down with the aesthetics of these empties, you're crazy. Because that bees empty that was badass. That's probably one of the best I've seen in a very, very long time. But again, we're just seeing how the kids are very inexperienced and making a ton of mistakes, much like Carl when he was kind of growing up with everybody back in the day, wandering all by himself, thinking he was older and more mature than he was, and thinking he can handle the task when he couldn't. So we're seeing a lot of that as well too. I really, really love so first of all, the Monopoly scene, first of all, I thought that was pretty funny, because like them having all the pieces for the Monopoly was already like a big shock factor. Like, we're talking about in the apocalypse now, and they had all the pieces to play the game, which I didn't expect, because it's more of a scavenger thing. Like, it's kind of like whatever you can find. But with that being said, I love that scene, because again, it's reminding the viewers of that they're just kids and they find fun, and they find their attention is grabbed by even the most simplest things, even with the threat of the apocalypse all around them. Like, there's literally an empty under them, which could attract more, and they're just like, oh, let's try to kill it. Oh, we failed. Don't worry about it. Let's play the Monopoly. Hey, let's go to sleep. And even when they were just like, hey, let's camp here, it wasn't even a hard decision. They were just like, yeah, let's just do it. And also, I will say this too, like the places where they just kind of like to set up shop, whether it's just them having a powwow or whether the different places that they meet, that they sleep, it also doesn't, it's like really like different, because like it's just like, whoa, you can just be there and it's okay, because we're just used to seeing people we're used to seeing in other shows that like it's always a threat everywhere and there's always an abundance of people or her at any given point. What I'm coming to think is that when you think about the population on the East Coast and that they're in Omaha, where it's clearly more of a country living and less of a population, that's why we're not seeing that many empties left and right for them. So like they're able to kind of like just sit around certain places even if it's in plain sight. And it's still like, even when they were on the tennis court, I mean, they were still around in the gate or whatnot, but like it's still something that we're just not totally used to seeing. But like, you know, with The Walking Dead, where they're like in Alexandria, Virginia, and then they came up from Georgia, and you know, all these places that have huge populations. That's why you're just seeing like the difference of like the herd capacity, shall I say. But at the same time too, like the Blaze of Gory. So the Blaze of Glory is a location that they identified that they have to go through in order to stay on track on the trajectory to get into New York. Obviously the L is removed because Blaze of Gory is a good wordplay for the name of the title. But I got to say, I love that smoke pit scene. I think The Walking Dead, when it comes down to scenes like that, they do it better than the rest. You know, another similarity is the scene where Jesus died in The Walking Dead, in that cemetery with the smoke and the blue and the low lights. I mean, when it comes down to shots like that, they nail it. And I think it was just pretty cool getting a glimpse of how good they do cinematography in their second episode already. I also love the idea of like how they had Felix narrating his teachings in the class, and then they're completely not executing, because it just displays the idea of just how inexperienced they are. And I think that you know, that is just again a reminder of the difference with this core group of kids, that they're just not like the other groups that we've seen before. They are completely out here basically on a thread on this big mission, probably covering more land than anybody else, to be honest. I mean, The Walking Dead, they went from Georgia to Virginia. They're going to Omaha to New York. Like that's a hike. But speaking of Felix, so Felix, you know, dealing with some trauma himself, so we get to see the flashback of the neglect that his parents gave to him and what he upbringing. It's pretty sad. And I don't know what to make just yet, but Felix going back to kill his parents was like a hardcore scene. And he just kind of like, Huck was kind of like, where'd you go? And he's just like, I went to kill my parents. And like, it's like, oh, I mean, that's a huge thing, but he kind of like brushed it off. I'm wondering if that's going to pay effects in the future with his psychology, because like it clearly bothered him. And with him being back in the town, like you can clearly see like it was giving him all types of triggers because of that. So I'm definitely curious to see how that plays a difference, plays an effect in the future. But you know, I really like seeing just the dynamics between the sister and this, how that's just growing and going forward. I think that's going to be it's going to be good television, good drama. And I think that, you know, for the second episode, I cannot wait for the next, because like I love the story that they're telling, and with it being in the Walking Dead universe but feeling like a different show, it's just keeping me invested, because you know, we got the other shows, we got the movies, got so much more content coming out, and I just love the fact that it's just not a repeat of another show, that this one, now 2 episodes in, still feels totally different. And The Walking Dead, you know, the recipe for success that it's had over the 10th season, it's easy to say, well, if that's working, let's just do that, but why? And they're trying something different, and it's a huge risk trying something different, and for me, it's absolutely working. So yes, this is my review of episode 2 of The Walking Dead World Beyond, Blaze of Gory. I love this episode, and I just can't wait to see what's going to happen next. It's good storytelling going on right now, and I'm really can't wait for the drama to really unfold as we're starting to see some things really shape up right now. So thank you for watching my review, folks, and I'll see you again for another review very soon.